Every evening at 9:30, Mark saw the same thing. Across the street, in the big white house, a woman closed her red curtains. Always the same time, always the same way. First, she turned on a small lamp. Then, she stood near the window for a moment. Sometimes she talked on the phone. Sometimes she read a book. Then, she closed the curtains. Mark didn't know her name. He called her the window woman. He wasn't trying to be strange. He just liked to watch the quiet things. The street was boring. The houses were boring. But the window across the street, it was interesting. Not exciting, not dangerous, just different. But one night, everything changed. It was 9:30. Mark sat at his desk, pretending to do homework. He looked up. The window was open. The lamp was off. The curtains were open. The room was dark. But she was there. The woman stood in the dark, not moving. She didn't talk on the phone. She didn't hold a book. She just looked outside. Not at the sky, not at the street, but straight ahead. Mark felt cold. She was looking at his window. He moved away quickly. A few minutes passed. He peeked again. The woman was gone. The next day, at school, Mark told his best friend Leo. "She looked at me, Leo, I'm sure." Leo laughed. "Maybe she saw you watching her." "Come on, man. You're acting like it's a movie." Mark shook his head. "No, she's not normal. Something's wrong. I feel it." Leo grinned. "Let's find out." That evening, Mark and Leo sat near the window in Mark's room. The lights were off. They waited. "I still think you're overreacting," Leo whispered. "Just wait," Mark said. It was quiet outside. A few cars passed. A dog barked in the distance. At exactly 9:30, the lamp turned on in the woman's room. "There," Mark said. The woman walked into the room. She wore a gray sweater. She didn't look at the window this time. She sat on the couch and picked up her phone. "See," Leo said, "she's just a normal lady." But then her face changed. She was talking, but her eyes looked scared. She held the phone with both hands. Her mouth moved fast. She looked around the room. Then suddenly stood up and closed the curtains. Mark and Leo stared at the dark window. "What was that?" Leo asked. "I told you," Mark said. "Something's wrong." The next night, it got stranger. At 9:20, a man appeared on the street. He wore a black jacket and a dark cap. He walked slowly, looking at the house. "Do you know him?" Mark asked. "No," Leo said. "Never seen him before." The man looked around, then rang the woman's doorbell. After a moment, the door opened. He went inside. "No lights," Mark whispered. "Why didn't she turn on the lamp?" They waited. Nothing. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Then, very faintly, they saw a shape behind the curtain. A man's shadow, tall, wide shoulders. Then another shape, smaller. The woman? She was facing the man. He moved closer to her. Her arms were up, like she was trying to stop him. And then the lamp turned on for a second. Mark and Leo saw her face. She looked afraid. Leo stood up. "Okay, this is not nothing." Mark was pale. "Should we call the police?" Leo hesitated. "We don't really know what's happening." "But we saw it," Mark said. "She's in danger." Leo looked at him. "Then we need proof." The next morning, Mark woke up early. He couldn't stop thinking about the woman's face. The fear in her eyes stayed in his mind. He couldn't just watch. He had to do something. At school, he told Leo his plan. I'm going to write her a note. Leo raised his eyebrows. A note? Like a love letter? No, Mark said. A warning. Just something. To tell her we saw. Maybe she needs help. Leo thought for a second. Then he nodded. Okay, let's do it after school. That afternoon, Mark wrote the note. We saw you last night. Are you okay? If you're in trouble, leave the lamp on tomorrow at 9:30. You are not alone. He folded the paper and put it in an envelope. After dark, he and Leo crossed the street. The street was quiet. Mark walked up to the mailbox of the White House and dropped the note inside. Then they ran back. The next night, they waited again. Mark's hands were cold, even inside his sleeves. At 9:30, the light came on. The red curtains were still open. The woman sat in the chair again. She looked calm, too calm. And the lamp was on. She saw the note, Mark whispered. Leo stared. So, she wants help? Mark nodded. We should go to the police. But Leo hesitated. They'll say we're kids with stories. Mark looked at the house. Then let's get proof. Let's take a video. Leo slowly smiled. Okay, tomorrow night, we record everything. That night, Mark couldn't sleep. He kept thinking, what if we're wrong? What if we're right? Either way, tomorrow would change everything. The next evening, at 9 o'clock, Mark and Leo stood outside in the dark. Mark's phone was in his pocket. The street was quiet. The only sound was the wind in the trees. We'll go to the side of the house, Leo whispered. Stay low. They crossed the street and moved along the white house's fence. The window was a little high, but there was a small bench under it. Leo climbed up and peeked inside. Then he stepped down quickly. "She's there," he whispered, "and he's there too." Mark climbed up. He held the phone up to record. The room was lit by the lamp. The woman sat in the chair. The man in the black jacket stood near her. He was talking. His hands moved a lot. The woman looked tired. Her eyes were red. Then the man raised his voice. Mark couldn't hear the words, but he saw her flinch. She stood up slowly. The man stepped closer. Suddenly, the woman reached for something on the table. A phone? A book? The man grabbed her arm. Mark gasped. He almost dropped the phone. "We have to do something," he said. Leo pulled his sleeve. "Come on, let's go." They ran back to Mark's house. Mark's hands shook as he stopped the recording. "I'm calling the police," he said. 20 minutes later, a police car arrived. The officers went to the White House. Mark and Leo watched from the window. The door opened. The woman stood there. She looked surprised, but not afraid. She talked to the police. The man in the black jacket came out too. He didn't fight. He didn't run. He just stood quietly. The police didn't arrest him. After a while, they left. Mark and Leo sat in silence. "What just happened?" Leo asked. "I don't know," Mark said. Then the door of the White House opened again. The woman walked across the street. Mark opened the front door before she could ring the bell. The woman stood there, holding her hands together. Her hair was loose, her face pale. But she smiled just a little. Hello, she said softly. Are your parents home? Mark shook his head. No, not yet. But, I'm sorry, we were just trying to help. She nodded. I know, I read your note. Leo stepped beside Mark. Was that man hurting you? The woman looked down. No, not really. But I understand why you thought so. She paused, then said, Come sit with me, just for a moment. They followed her across the street. Inside, the house was quiet and clean. The lamp was on, just like always. She pointed to the couch. That man, she began, is my little brother. His name is Alex. Mark blinked. Brother? She nodded. He's 25, but sometimes he acts like a child. He's had problems since he was young, mental illness. He gets angry, confused. I take care of him. She looked at them gently. Last night, he was upset. He lost his job again. He shouted, yes, but he wasn't trying to hurt me. He just doesn't know how to control his feelings. Mark felt his face grow hot. We thought. You thought something was wrong, she said. And you were brave. You cared. That matters. Leo looked at the floor. We filmed it. She smiled a little. You were scared. I understand. There was a pause. Then she said, But please, next time, try talking to the person first. Not everything scary is dangerous. Sometimes, it's just someone trying to hold their life together. Mark nodded slowly. He understood. That night, Mark sat by his window again. At 9:30, the lamp turned on. The woman stood by the window for a moment. She looked out, not at the sky, not at the street, but at his window. She smiled. And then she closed the red curtains. Теперь попробуй перевести на английский, чтобы улучшить свои разговорные навыки. Где жила женщина? Where did the woman live? Она жила в большом белом доме. She lived in a big white house. В какое время? What time? Женщина закрывала. Did the woman close? Шторы. The curtains. В какое время женщина закрывала шторы? What time did the woman close the curtains? Она всегда закрывала их в 9:30. She always closed them at 9:30. Как Марк называл женщину? What did Mark call the woman? Он называл ее «женщина в окне». He called her the window woman. Почему Марк? Why did Mark наблюдал за окном? Watch the window. Почему Марк наблюдал за окном? Why did Mark watch the window? Это было интереснее. It was more interesting. Чем улица. Than the street. Это было интереснее, чем улица. It was more interesting than the street. Что произошло? What happened? Одной странной ночью. One strange night. Что произошло одной странной ночью? What happened one strange night? Женщина посмотрела. The woman looked. Прямо в окно Марка. Directly at Mark's window. Женщина посмотрела прямо в окно Марка. The woman looked directly at Mark's window. Как Марк отреагировал? How did Mark react? На ее взгляд. To her look. Как Марк отреагировал на ее взгляд? How did Mark react to her look? Он похолодел. He felt cold. И быстро отошел. And moved away quickly. Он похолодел и быстро отошел. He felt cold and moved away quickly. С кем Марк поговорил? Who did Mark talk to? В школе. At school. С кем Марк поговорил в школе? Who did Mark talk to at school? Он рассказал? He told своему другу Лео. His friend Leo. Об этом. About it. Он рассказал об этом своему другу Лео. He told his friend Leo about it. Что подумал Лео? What did Leo think? Сначала. At first. Что сначала подумал Лео? What did Leo think at first? Он подумал. He thought, что Марк преувеличивает. Mark was overreacting. Он подумал, что Марк преувеличивает. He thought Mark was overreacting. Что мальчики увидели? What did the boys see? Следующей ночью. The next night. Что мальчики увидели следующей ночью? What did the boys see the next night? Они увидели, что женщина. They saw the woman. Выглядит испуганной. Look scared. Они увидели, что женщина выглядит испуганной. They saw the woman look scared. Кто пришел в дом? Who came to the house? Позже. Later. Кто позже пришел в дом? Who came to the house later? Мужчина в черной куртке. A man in a black jacket. Прибыл. Arrived. Прибыл мужчина в черной куртке. A man in a black jacket arrived. Что мальчики увидели? What did the boys see? За занавеской. Behind the curtain. Что мальчики увидели за занавеской? What did the boys see behind the curtain? Они увидели две тени. They saw two shadows. И испуганное лицо женщины. And the woman's scared face. Они увидели две тени и испуганное лицо женщины. They saw two shadows and the woman's scared face. Что Марк написал? What did Mark write? Женщине. To the woman. Что Марк написал женщине? What did Mark write to the woman? Он спросил. He asked. Нужна ли ей помощь? If she needed help. Он спросил, нужна ли ей помощь. He asked if she needed help. Где они оставили? Where did they leave? Записку. The note. Где они оставили записку? Where did they leave the note? Они положили ее? They put it в ее почтовый ящик. In her mailbox. Они положили ее в ее почтовый ящик. They put it in her mailbox. Была ли лампа включена? Was the lamp on? Следующей ночью. The next night. Горела ли лампа следующей ночью? Was the lamp on the next night? Да, лампа была включена. Yes, the lamp was turned on. Что мальчики решили? What did the boys decide? Сделать. To do. Что мальчики решили сделать? What did the boys decide to do? Они планировали? They planned. Заснять эту сцену. To film the scene. Они планировали снять эту сцену на камеру. They planned to film the scene. Что делал мужчина? What did the man do? Внутри. Inside. Что делал мужчина внутри? What did the man do inside? Он схватил? He grabbed. Руку женщины. The woman's arm. Он схватил женщину за руку. He grabbed the woman's arm. Что сделал Марк? What did Mark do? После съемки. After filming. Что сделал Марк после съемки? What did Mark do after filming?
Он вызвал полицию.
He called the police
Незамедлительно.
immediately.
Он сразу же вызвал полицию.
He called the police immediately.
Кем был этот мужчина?
Who was the man?
На самом деле.
Actually.
Кем был этот мужчина на самом деле?
Who was the man actually?
Он был младшим братом женщины.
He was the woman's younger brother.
Что было не так?
What was wrong?
С ее братом.
With her brother.
Что было не так с ее братом?
What was wrong with her brother?
У него были проблемы с психическим здоровьем.
He had mental health problems.